Hi, welcome to the Ambient iPad. Let's make some music. The word for today is ambient. I'm going to use a few reverbs and rely really just on one Mellotron sound, the piano. Mellotron has 3 different piano sounds. To be honest, none of them sound really good in isolation, but when you apply some effects to them, particularly for how I'm going to use it, which is really sparse and just to create an ambient landscape, it'll work fine. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini analog output into a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8 interface, which communicates back and forth with the iPad through a USB-C hub, which also enables me to power the iPad Pro at the same time. We're going to start with actually the template that we used for the last jam, which was again an ambient jam. I used some sound effects in the beginning, really some cymbals, and some choir, and then some real spacious flute and bass clarinet. For this ambient, quote-unquote ambient jam, I'm going to just use a piano sound. The piano sounds on the Mellotron are very interesting, so I'm going to walk through those. But first, let me add a new track, and to be honest, I'm just going to duplicate this track. It's the easiest thing to do, and then we'll go in. I'm not going to use micro pitch for this. We will use Blackhole, we will use Velvet Machine, we will use wider. We're going to use the same settings that we had before. This is the Blackhole patch. For Velvet Machine, it's medium reverb with a few tweaks. And on wider, which helps give a little bit of a stereo sound to a mono sound, I just use 20%. I find when you get above that, it just starts to sound artificial. Let's turn these off and on, and that gives you the icon back. I may add a third reverb instead of micro pitch, but let's wait on that. So we need to mute what we did last time, and let's go for monitoring. All right, that's pretty big. So let's sample the pianos. There's 3 different pianos on here, one from the Mark I, one from, I know, Chamberlain, and the third one, I honestly can't remember. So let's get in here. One of the things you can do with the Mellotron is you can look, you don't have to, scroll through everything. You can change it. So index by name, index by category, and I'm actually not sure if we want index by, let's do by name because it'll be piano. So let's go down to the P's, and it'll tell us up top where we're at. And I'll explain a little about each piano. So there are 3 pianos. So right, Mark I, Mellotron Mark II, and then the Chamberlain Music Master. So the Mellotron Mark I, so let's be honest, all of these pianos sound really interesting because they were recorded to tape. And so the fidelity in all of them is wanting. But that's actually okay for what we're doing today, which is really this spacious ambient thing. You can hear that going in the background. I mean, it goes on for a long time. Big canyon sound. So the Mellotron Mark I is an interesting piano because essentially when you go from here to this, you're skipping an octave. So it skips an octave. And the reason for that is that the Mellotron Mark I was actually 2 keyboards with a wood strip in the center because a lot of the left ones would trigger rhythms. So they had tapes that were just like bossa nova and all these other kind of very 60-ish kind of rhythms. So, imagine a big wood strip here, and so there's that. We're not going to use that piano. For the Mellotron Mark II, they went to a normal. There's no jumping in octaves here. The quality's a little better. So you can hear that. Actually, I like that line. We might use that. And then finally, the Chamberlain Music Master. So because for the Chamberlain tapes, they used, if nothing else, better microphones. The fidelity on the the Chamberlain sounds are better typically than the Mellotron ones. And in some cases, Mellotron licensed the Chamberlain tapes, and then for whatever reason they weren't always sounding as good. So that's really the highest fidelity one, and I'm probably going to use that. Here's the Mark II. Very similar, just slightly darker. So it really doesn't matter which one I use, but I'm going to use the Chamberlain one. Actually, a little too high, to be honest. Yeah, just a little top end, too much top end. Be honest, the Mark II sounds a little natural. A little more natural. This, when I'm comparing them, typically I use the Music Master piano if I want to use piano, just because it sounds in isolation the best. But when I compare it to the Mellotron Mark II piano, the top end's just a little more rounded on the Mark II, and I just like that more. So that's kind of, I don't know if I need another reverb. That really sounds big. You know what I might try to do? Just with like a little bigger of a stereo field here. And I'm gonna try Bleass's Motion FX. I'm not looking for a chopping sound here, a regular tape, moving spaces. I'm just going by the names. Maybe I should have just used a panning app, rotary pan. I do have rotaries. I could use that. Yeah, this isn't working. This isn't going to work. I may just stick with the auto pan and see what happens. I don't want to get into the rotary, the Eventide rotary. That can often be odd. Well, let's get into the patch itself. You know, it's going too fast for me. You can... Well, just for fun, let's go into the Eventide rotary and see. Do I have any user patches? No. Let's see if one of the presets, subtle and just does a pan. Yeah, we don't want intense. Yeah, we don't want anything like that either. I'm kind of striking out here in effects. I mean, they're cool, but not, I don't really want to lose, I don't want to really lose the piano sound, only because the piano sound is at a deficit to begin with. You know, we're not using a rompler or samples or anything. It's extremely high quality samples of original Mellotron tapes, but in the end, it is still the Mellotron tape or the Chamberlain tape. No, in this case, we're using the Mark II. And so the idiosyncrasies of the tape come through, which is what I want. Well, that does sound cool though, but this one, let's try it without. A little swirly, but really minimal. You know what? For this one, just no modulation, no rotary. That was not the way to do it. Keep it on and then turn it off here. Let's just try one more time. I'm waffling. I think for this one, I'm just gonna worry about the reverbs. Maybe a future video will do weird piano sounds, but for this one, that's not what we're gonna do. So we've got all the effects set up. I'm not gonna use any modulation, we'll just use the reverbs. You can hear kind of the overall soundscape we're gonna do. I'll let that tail fade out, and then I'll do a jam. So as you can hear, those Mellotron piano sounds are a bit wanting. Certainly no one's going to play a concerto or a solo piano show with them. But once you apply some effects, particularly reverbs, and the fact that I was just playing pretty sparse just to build up a soundscape, I think it works fine. Well, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.